being smart, being a learner, and being willing to admit when I'm wrong. And so the thing that I began to build my self-esteem around was being willing and able to stare at my inadequacies, right? What you said, like, I fully understand, like, how this interview is gonna be, I mean, you warned me ahead of time, this interview is gonna be bifurcating. People are gonna love it and some people are gonna hate it. But dude, I so believe in the notion of looking at yourself, and if you are pathetic, owning it, right? And saying, because my thing is you can change it, right? Which you have proven in no uncertain terms.
That's it.
But if you don't admit it, you're never gonna be on the path.
This is The Art of Charm. Learn everything you need to know to crush it in business, love, and life.
Today we're talking with Dr. Anders Ericsson, also a prof at Florida State University, about his book Peak, co-authored with Robert Poole. This is a really interesting book. This is a really interesting set of concepts. Innate talent is not real, or at least it's not what people think it is, and may not exist at all. We're going to talk about the concept of deliberate practice and how we can become amazing at just about any skill, and how to set up a deliberate practice regimen to become more effective at anything that we do. This episode is a must for anyone who practices any craft or art and wants to get better at it. And with that, welcome to The Art of Charm. I'm your host, Jordan Harbinger. The Art of Charm brings together the best thought leaders, teachers, and exceptional individuals to teach you how to be a top performer in life, love, and at work. If you're new to the show, we'd love to send you some top episodes and our toolbox, where we discuss things like body language, nonverbal communication, networking, persuasion, and everything else we teach here at AOC. Just text CHARMED to 33444 or go to theartofcharm.com. That's CHARMED to 33444, or hit the website at theartofcharm.com. We might not have all the answers, but we definitely have some of the questions. All right, here's Dr. Anders Ericsson. Tell us what you do in one sentence.
Well, I've always been very interested in trying to understand how people are very successful, how they're thinking, and how that's different from less accomplished individuals are able to do.
So let's talk about what that means. I'd like to define expert first, because I think nowadays you can just tell yourself or tell other people on the internet that you're an expert, and technically now you are, but that's not what you mean, right?
No, in fact, I think that's one of the key points in our research, is that for a long time, people were, looking for experts, and they had this idea of somebody who had been doing something for years and decades, and somebody who had a long education. And I think that created some problems, because once you started testing these individuals using kind of objective tests on their performance, you kind of surprisingly found that additional years or decades of experience really didn't improve their ability to kind of perform at a higher level. So if we're talking about psychotherapists, for example, having 20 years of experience treating patients is not a predictor that your patients will be having better outcomes than a colleague with much less experience.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's important. So you had to kind of codify this. And I want to step back and talk about perfect pitch, because I thought this was a great example of innate talent, or the fallacy of innate talent. Can you tell us what this discovery meant and what this was?
Right. People for a very long time were looking for these kinds of abilities that could possibly explain now why some people are more outstanding musicians than other people. And one of the things, looking in particular at Mozart, which is, I think, the prototypical prodigy of somebody who performed at a very high level at a young age. And he had this ability that's referred to as perfect pitch. So you can actually play a tone in isolation. And one way of thinking about this test is that you're basically your eyes closed and somebody's hitting a key on the piano. Somebody with perfect pitch would be able to tell you exactly which of the keys that somebody hit. And that ability is sort of intriguing, because when adult musicians, tried to acquire this ability, they found that it was almost impossible for them to do. So here we have something that Mozart exhibited as a kid that other musicians, when they try to acquire that ability in adulthood, are pretty much not able to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So that would seem, to be something that some people are born with and other people just don't have the genes to support that.
Genetic or innate talent, essentially.
Exactly. And one of the things that people found out that maybe, modifies the importance here of perfect pitch is that several famous musicians who were very successful did not have it. So it's not like you can't be a very famous musician without having it. But more recent research has really looked at it and tried to understand now at what age does this develop. And what they found was that, in fact, when you're young, between 3 and 5, this is not something that's quite easy to develop. In fact, there's a recent study by a Japanese researcher who took average kids and basically gave them training, these young kids, and were able to all give them basically the performance of perfect pitch. So now, I guess, and this is consistent with some ideas that we proposed a long time ago, namely that maybe it's the early training in music that actually provides this kind of training that allows children to acquire this ability. And what's intriguing is as the brain grows when you're 5 or 6, it seems that now it's developing in a different path if you haven't already acquired this ability. So basically, it's going to now be impossible for you to acquire it in the same way and very difficult to acquire it using other different methods.
The researchers ended up being able to teach people perfect pitch, which is something that heretofore was considered something that you had to be born with.
Exactly. And these kids were now between 3 and 5, which is a very young age to teach kids just about anything. And it's also related to the fact that some languages, like Mandarin, are tonal languages.
Oh, don't I know it? Yeah.
And in those languages, you really do have to be able to make that kind of pitch distinction in order to be able to understand the words. And in those cultures, individuals who start training music early on almost always have perfect pitch.
Interesting.
It seems that the brain is actually susceptible to certain kinds of encodings. And if you get the training, now you will actually put the brain on a different path. And it turns out that you can actually see brain differences in those people who have perfect pitch from those who have not. That ability influences now the development of the brain.
So tell me this. I don't know if this makes any sense with your research, but when I was a kid, I decided to learn to play the flute, which was like a terrible decision socially because a boy who plays the flute, I didn't see this coming, which shows you where I was in my social development as a kid. I just thought, hey, it's really light and I don't have to carry it around. I was the only guy who did it, but we got a chance to perform our own music, whatever we wanted to perform, on Fridays. And most people would go to the music store and buy some sort of like TV themes book or whatever, but they were all songs for girls, especially with the flute, because they assumed that's who was playing it. So I had to write my own because I wanted to play the A-Team, not the theme song from Hello Kitty or whatever it was. So I would sit there and watch things like Cheers and A-Team, and I would memorize the song in my head, which was, something that easily gets stuck in your head. And I would simply write down the notes, and then I would go in and play it. And I didn't need to necessarily read the notes. I would just play the instrument from memory. And now I can speak Chinese, by the way. I'm learning it, and I have no problem with the tones whatsoever. Is there a linkage there?
It's quite possible here that, because I know that some people really do have difficulty with Chinese with respect to that, learning the differences of the tones. In a sense here, I guess perfect pitch, when you can actually distinguish, almost like 100 tones, that is obviously a slightly different skill than being able to recognize different tones within sort of a more normal range. And people have told me here that there are certain kinds of things. So when you recognize, it used to be that car horns were actually in a particular tone. And people would say that you kind of hear that this was a car horn, which implies here that they were able to make some kind of distinction here about the tone level. So there may be a much more range of ability when it comes to making those distinctions than where perfect pitch is now an extreme case here of somebody who can distinguish close to 100 different tones, whereas other activities maybe require discriminating, 4 or 5.
Okay, this makes sense. I was just curious. I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm a musical prodigy. I'm definitely far from anything like that. And I certainly can't speak Chinese fluently and flawlessly, but I can certainly hear the difference between the tones. And I just thought maybe those things were linked when I was reading the book. So essentially, by teaching perfect pitch, researchers have shown that extraordinary skills are learnable and teachable, not just something you're born with. By the way, the book is called Peak, for those of you who missed the title the first time. You also mentioned later on that savants and people who are quote-unquote prodigies show no difference in their ability to learn things, just in the amount of practice. And we can touch on the practice concept later on, but I can just hear people saying, but what about prodigies? What about savants? People who are autistic but can play the piano perfectly after hearing a song one time. You're saying that there's not necessarily anything genetic going on there or anything innate going on there. It's something else, and it just happens to be a matter of obsessive practice.
So I think the key idea here is when we've looked at these exceptional performances, and especially when they are done here by young kids, most people would say, wow, they must have been born with it. If you actually try to describe the detailed environment of many of these individuals, you find that they engaged in a lot of sort of guided practice where an adult was actually helping them develop these skills, especially when it comes to music performance. We're simply arguing here that if you look at the amount and the quality of the training that preceded their ability to perform, we don't see any evidence here that basically there's something innate or special about these individuals. And one example, coming back now to Mozart, he was able to perform at a very young age. What most people don't recognize is that Mozart's father was actually a pioneer when it came to training children and thinking up ways in which you could actually design training activities for children so they would be able to master a musical instrument at a very young age. And there is a development that most people have heard about with the Suzuki method for playing. And the Suzuki method is basically based on the assumption here that, every child learns to speak the language. And if you look at the kind of activities that the child engages in order to learn how to speak, the native language, you can apply the same methods for them to learn how to sing and how to play an instrument. When you look at individuals now that have been trained with the Suzuki method and compare them with what Mozart was able to do at young ages, you find that so-called average children actually were able to acquire the same level of ability of playing instruments if they actually had this early training.
This is super interesting because basically we're saying not only is innate talent not necessarily real, but people used to think no amount of practice would help if you didn't have the right genes. And now we're saying, look, you've got the right genes because you have genes.
Just to be really careful here as a scientist, what I would say is, reviewing all the evidence, I have found no evidence that you have to be born with certain genes to be able to achieve these performances. Now, I can't prove that that's the case and that future science won't basically uncover something. But if you accept now one thing, which is height and body size, we know that height and body size is not something that you can train. When it comes to virtually everything else, there is known training methods by which you can actually improve these abilities. So that then raises the question here, is there enough flexibility and plasticity in normal people that with training they would be able to reach these high levels of performance? And again here we have to sometimes assume that some changes can only happen when you're actually training, when you're in development. So for example, ballet dancers, can turn out their feet more than normal people. That seems to be something that you have to actually acquire through training between 9 and 11. Because as you get older, the bones calcify, so then the joints are going to be fixed. You can't actually then change that. But when you're young, then the bones are not fixed. And then actually through training, you can actually make adjustments in the joints that will actually then, make a big difference when you're an adult.
Yeah, this makes sense. So what elements of talent then are genetic? Things like joints and maybe neuroplasticity? And that's all we've seen so far?
Well, to be honest here, I think when it comes to, the height, which is sort of useful in basketball and other sports, to be tall, turns out that the reverse is true for artistic gymnastics, where being short is really a major advantage in order to be competitive in gymnastics. Now, I think when it comes to facial features, you're not really doing anything to modify your face here, and I'm kind of excluding plastic surgery. But basically, normally nobody is really trying to change their facial structure. But if we're looking at muscles in your arms and legs, everyone knows that training can actually dramatically modify the size and the strength and all sorts of characteristics of the muscles. And our point is that that's true for so many aspects of your body. And one example that I think is interesting is if you donate one of your kidneys to somebody who desperately needs a kidney, what's interesting is that the body within the next 3 weeks after you've donated that kidney, the remaining kidney will actually grow about 70% in size to kind of absorb, basically the demand here for activities of the kidneys. So the body is incredibly modifiable in a way that if we understand how we can actually design training that will sort of stimulate the body in certain directions, we can get amazing changes, even in sort of the biology and physiology of the body.
The science in the book is exciting, especially because it seems like anybody can do this. It suggests that we have far more power than we ever really realized to take control of our own lives and our performance. And the old view was that everybody's born with a certain potential for math and music and sports, or even business. And the new view seems to be that the brain is adaptable, the body and brain are adaptable to the point that we now see that there is no such thing as a predefined potential or ability. And this is a game changer because learning now becomes a way of creating abilities rather than bringing people to the point where they meet some sort of innate potential.
Right, and I guess one of the key ideas that I always have told my students about is that many of them go around looking for their innate talent and gifts. It's almost, you go sniff around here to kind of find what you really were innately predestined to succeed at. And our view is you're actually creating your own abilities. So by actually making an early decision here about something that you want to create, you're going to actually be on the path here of developing something. And, you can always change to something else if that looks more attractive or some opportunity arises. But the idea here that you actively have to create yourself is something that I think is a really key new idea that will make a big difference to people.
Yeah, well, the reason I picked up the book was because I saw that it was about the right sort of practice, deliberate practice. The right sort of practice carried out over a sufficient period of time leading to improvement, not natural talent and not certain types of just keep doing it and it'll work. You mention in the book that human potential, or maybe potential is not the right word given what we just discussed, but in the last 100 years or so, human achievement, things that people can do individually in sports or whatever, seems to have increased dramatically in pretty much every field. To what do you attribute that change?
Well, we kind of argue that if you try not to find the type of practice activities that's really effective, and the best way, I guess, to do that is to find a teacher who would be able to actually guide you to assess where you're at. In a sense, you're building something like a house. Well, you're going to do better here if you get the foundation right, because if you mess up here in the beginning, you're going to acquire all sorts of habits that later on will actually make it more difficult.
years or so, human achievement, things that people can do individually in sports or whatever, seems to have increased dramatically in pretty much every field. To what do you attribute that change?
Well, we kind of argue that if you try not to find the type of practice activities that's really effective, and the best way, I guess, to do that is to find a teacher who would be able to actually guide you to assess where you're at. In a sense, they're building something like a house. Well, you're going to do better here if you get the foundation right, because if you mess up here in the beginning, you're going to acquire all sorts of habits that later on will actually make it more difficult for you to continue. These historical changes, we find, are closely related now to insights about effective practice. For example, I guess when it comes to long distance running, the speed by which you can run long distances fast, people realize could actually be improved here by interval training. Now, interval training, you're actually pushing the limits for maybe 100 yards, and then you basically are exhausted. So now you walk a little bit, and then you push yourself for another 100 yards. That kind of training will actually stimulate now the physiological structures. So you will be able to have more capillaries that will give your muscles blood, and it will even change the diameter of our arteries and change the structure of the heart to maximize your ability to actually pump blood, so the muscles can now actually perform at a more effective and enduring level.
All right, when we get back, I want to hear about applying the principles of deliberate practice and how to design practice methods in any area. In other words, why should the teaching techniques used to turn aspiring musicians into concert pianists have anything to do with becoming a prima ballerina or a chess grandmaster? This is The Art of Charm. This episode of AOC sponsored in part by Headspace. Look, let's be honest, you guys know from listening to this show, most of your problems start with your mind. Stress, fear, anger, depression, anxiety, insomnia, whatever it is, a lot of this begins in your head. And they can wreck your life, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can make a difference, and you can start like me in just 10 minutes a day. The change comes through guided meditation. And I don't mean, Om or lotus position. I mean using an app like Headspace. It's meditation made simple. Guided meditation you listen to whenever you want, wherever you want, right on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet. Thousands of years of tradition. We're going to take some of the woo out, thousands of scientific studies instead, that will show the positive effects like improving focus and relationship harmony and decreasing anxiety and stress. 5 million users, sure 5 million people could be wrong, but give it a shot for yourself. Headspace.com/charm. 10 days for free, headspace.com/charm. Let me know what you think of Headspace or meditation in general. Now, back to the show. All right, we're back with Dr. Anders Ericsson. I'd love to hear more about deliberate practice. I mean, human potential, or at least human achievement, has increased so much over the past century, in part or in large part to what we consider deliberate practice or different training methods. What do these training methods have in common, and how can we start to harness these for ourselves? Because I think everybody listening is thinking, all right, I'm writing down deliberate practice because I want to be better at anything from writing to running.
Right. And we kind of make distinctions between different kinds of practice. And I think what a lot of people, professionals in particular, argue is practice. A doctor sees patients, tries to diagnose them and recommend treatment. Somebody else is doing their job, and they're just doing essentially more of the same. They may encounter different patients or different projects, but they basically are not asking the question here, how could I basically do this better? And I guess that is kind of the starting point for what we call purposeful practice. So once you identify something that you want to improve, now you can actually come up with training activities which would allow you now to repeatedly try to refine one aspect of what you're doing. And then eventually you would now bring that back into your regular training. And maybe sort of my favorite example is when you play doubles tennis, and then you say you miss a backhand volley. Well, the game, if you're just playing with friends, is just going to continue. So maybe an hour later, you get into the same situation, and you're not going to be able to do any better at that time. Contrast that now with basically finding a tennis coach who will basically allow you to kind of be ready for the backhand volley and start out with simple ones and then basically give you harder ones. And then you have to run up to the net and increase the difficulty once you have acquired the basic skills to do the task. And our claim is that within 1 hour or 2 hours working with a tennis coach, you will have improved your backhand volley performance by much more than you probably would in years of just playing recreational tennis.
Sure. I mean, the best way to get past any barrier is to come at things from different directions, and having teachers and coaches, someone who is already familiar with the sorts of obstacles that you're likely to encounter, can always suggest and drill ways to overcome them. And this is what we do at The Art of Charm, essentially. And a lot of people think, oh, I can learn the skills of persuasion and influence and charisma on my own. And the answer is, sure, you totally can. It might take you 15 years, but you can definitely do it. People come to us or to any coach because they want to learn things quickly and efficiently. One thing I thought was super interesting, on speaking of coaching or lack of coaching, is that a lot of people find that they get to a certain level of performance where things become automated and they hit this weird plateau. Even doctors, unfortunately, like driving's the example you gave, but doctors and pie baking, you stop improving. You just go, I can do this good enough. And your brain doesn't challenge itself anymore. You don't challenge yourself. You're just kind of existing in this weird field of performance where some days are better than others, but you're not really growing. Yet as people, as performers or experts in any field, we kind of delude ourselves into thinking, well, I'm practicing, so I should technically be getting better. And this just isn't the case.
No, and I think that you're describing what, a lot of people go through is it just gets easier to do what they used to be able to do. And what the key is to purposeful practice is essentially identifying now things that you could do better. And one way to do it, like in sports, would be to videotape yourself and basically take a very close look at the products that you're doing and comparing them now with people that are kind of at the top of their field. And you can now start seeing things that are actually not as good with your product. And that will actually now be a stimulus for you to do better. I think medicine is a great example because we're all probably patients at some point in time. And we would like to have a doctor that basically will diagnose us correctly so we will be able to get the best treatment immediately. Now, we know that doctors and some doctors are better than others, but essentially there is going to be mistakes. And the problem is that a doctor, when they're doing their best to diagnose somebody to give them treatment and they make a mistake, they won't get feedback on that. So it's very hard for them to actually improve. So what we've suggested here, that if you have videotapes of patients and then you wait until they actually get their final diagnosis, you can now give that sort of interview tape to a lot of doctors who will then make their diagnosis. And then once they've committed to a diagnosis, you can give them immediately the feedback about which one is correct. And we argue that that type of libraries of experiences where you can get that immediate feedback, learning laboratories that would allow people to develop if they were motivated.
This is excellent. It's funny you should mention videotaping as well, because at AOC Bootcamp, the live training that we run here in LA, we do a lot of videotaping of people in social interactions, which is one area where you will literally never see yourself from any sort of removed stance, because nobody films themselves interacting socially and acts naturally. It's almost impossible. And so breaking this down, we can do a lot of purposeful or deliberate practice. It's focused, it has well-defined goals, it involves feedback, and of course, being on camera and being in social situations where we throw you into requires getting out of your comfort zone. And these are some of the factors that you've mentioned in the book, that purposeful practice has well-defined goals, is focused, involves feedback, and requires being outside of your comfort zone in order to best practice and learn.
Right. So the idea is that if you're going to improve, you need to find something that you can't do. So if you just keep doing what you already know how to do, then it's unclear how you can improve. By setting a goal that is reachable from your current level of performance, so you can now refine and actually by repetition now find ways to approach this task differently so you can reach that higher level. That is kind of the key here to improvement. And I think you could find anybody doing almost anything that, especially if you have a teacher looking at that individual, they would be able to help, what it is that they should be paying attention to, that they may not. And we also try to emphasize this idea of the mental representation. What is actually going on in the head of the person performing? Because that is kind of a key. So the more that you're aware of what you're doing, if you now make a mistake, you're going to be in a much better position here to make adjustments and corrections than if you're just relying on your intuition. Because if you just did something and it turns out to be incorrect, what is it that you should be doing differently if you encounter a similar situation in the future?
So purposeful practice in a nutshell, it sounds like get outside your comfort zone, do it in a focused way, have clear goals and a plan for reaching those goals, and a way to essentially monitor your progress. And then, of course, last but not least, stay motivated. And I would love to talk a little bit about motivation because I feel like that's something we hear about a lot from people who are high performers and low performers. Lazy people or people who seem to be lazy lack motivation. But even high performers, entrepreneurs and things like that, often can lack motivation, at least in the beginning, because things are tough.
It's linked up here with this idea here that if you really experience every situation as a new situation with new potential challenges, then I think you will enjoy that a whole lot more and will also sensitize you to things that you need to be kind of paying attention to. And if the outcome is not the one that you wanted, it will now provide you with sort of an idea here about something that you may be able to work out, not by interacting with new and other customers, but basically by finding a training environment that allows you now to kind of repeat and refine what you're doing.
Now, we know about concepts such as neuroplasticity with London cabbies and your study with them, with the parts that required a lot of memorization, things like that, were actually growing. And we also know through MRI with blind people that they use the visual parts of their cortex to adapt to disability. Is it possible then to shape the brain, my brain, your brain, whatever, in ways that we want to through the training? Can we actually modify the structure of our brain?
Well, I think that all the research that I've seen with experts seems to suggest here that the training that you engage in will actually reshape the structure and the myelinization of the brain to actually allow you now to develop the control that I think is a key to expert performance. It's not the automaticity, but it's really the ability here to control your performance that I associate with a high level of performance.
Is it safe to say that we can rewire our brains to become more talented, according to kind of our non-traditional definition?
No, talent often describes very generalizable abilities. What we find here when we analyze high-level performers is that they have developed very specialized abilities that are adapted now to the particular kind of demands and constraints of the task that they're involved in. And that's actually one of the reasons why we would argue that the idea here that innate talent really plays a role when you're really skilled is really not well supported, because we do find that when you start out with a domain like music or chess or something like that, then your performance on an IQ test is actually correlated with how well you do in the beginning. As we're now looking at people who train and acquire now these tailor-made mechanisms for dealing with a task that they're trying to improve, then the correlations with these general ability disappears. And I think basically the idea here of talent, it's almost like you have to assume that it's something general, because how likely is it that being a violinist would be something that you're innately programmed for during the hundred thousands of years that humans were engaged in hunter-gathering activities?
Of course, people didn't necessarily evolve to play the guitar really well, right? That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. That's very hard to believe. And combined with this fact that when you look at people as they get better and better pianists or playing any other instrument, it seems that now the general abilities are no longer related to the individual differences in their ability to perform. So it makes more sense to assume now that any individual differences in the performance among experts is now reflecting the structure of the skill that they acquired rather than anything that they actually started out with.
Do we have to maintain the brain gains that we get from training and practice? Do we have to do something special in order to keep them there? Or are we then able to get to a certain high level and then go back into autopilot mode?
Well, I think unfortunately there are experts who seem to have reached a high level and then go off on automatic pilot mode. And what we see is that those individuals, especially if they don't practice, they will actually get worse. And I guess in the book, we talk a little bit about examples from medicine. So when it comes to diagnosing heart sounds, that there's something wrong with the heart when you listen to it, we find actually that the performance of general practitioners gets worse with the number of years since they graduated. The positive here is that a weekend of actually being trained now, so you listen to heart sounds and get immediate feedback, you can actually get back to the level that you had when you ended your medical training. A lot of these activities require sustained training and activation. And just listening to patients that you basically diagnose without now knowing if you actually are accurate in your assessment of the heart sounds, is basically not any activity here that allows you to maintain your skills doing this activity. And I think it's true. Everyone probably knows here that if you haven't done something for a long time, your ability to do it decreases, whether it's speaking a foreign language or playing some kind of sport. So what we find here is with professionals, those professionals who are able to sustain their high level of performance in their 60s, those are the ones who actually set aside 10, 15 hours a week where they're doing nothing but practicing and trying to refine, or maybe in some cases, still improving their ability when it comes to music performance.
When we get back, I want to talk about mental representations. In other words, the almost different brain language that super high performers use to become and maintain themselves as high performers. This is The Art of Charm. Here at AOC, we teach you how to be a top performer in life, love, and at work. And one of the ways in which you can do that is to establish your online presence. That's where HostGator comes in. They've got reliable web hosting, a seamless experience with optimized WordPress. In other words, they handle all the updates, all those plugins, backup, security, all that stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. You can focus on your content. If you've ever run your own WordPress site, you know how important it is to back things up, keep it safe, keep it quote-unquote hacker-proof, and HostGator will handle that for you so you're safe as...
Yo. Oh, shit. What up, Thriles? What up, man? How's it going? I'm going for gold. Perfect wave dashes. Get that beautiful gold color. Oh, I stopped to say hello to you. I figured you just woke up because I texted you like 2 or 3 hours ago and you only just wrote back. So I figured you must have just woken up because I know you're not working today. I know your schedule. I stalk you. Look at these goldy wave dashes. Yesterday, I couldn't do them at all, basically. I'm getting there. Dude, how much faster is it when you can do them back and forth? And I also worked out, it's not perfect, but when I'm in crouch wait, so when I can act out of crouching, I guess you can, then I go green. So I set the overlay specifically for that. So the goal is, eventually, not right now, but all wave dashes should be gold. I haven't put in the full length things yet. I'm not writing about that yet. So they should be gold and there should be no green in between. So gold. But that's what I'm working towards. Starting off very slow and just trying to get the golds. Yeah, I'm not worried about the max length one because they're so hard to hit. And you so often air dodge. Yeah, I'm not worried about that right now. The biggest thing is, like, you know how I've been talking about, I just want to increase my speed. That's why I'm like focusing on these like perfect wave dash timings. Because if I, like a wave dash when you're like doing it slowly versus when you're doing the perfect speed, it's just, I don't know what the frame difference is, but do you get IASA out of wave dashes? Will they go green out of wave dashes? Because that's something, yeah, I was super curious about. Not sure, maybe. Oh, let me go for one more minute so that I know where I'm at 20 minutes. I know you get out of just landing. I know you get it out of just landing and stuff. So what, after you L cancel it'll go green? Or if you do like a normal land after the 4 frames it'll go green? Because I know I had IASA on. Yo, Thralls. Go into Happy Friend Fun Times general voice chat so you can explain this to me. If you're not too sleepy, that is. Is he too sleepy? I don't know. Happy Friend Fun Times. Alright. Let's try and set this up. Where's my mouse gone? He's not coming in. He must be too sleepy. Alright, my mouse is working. Hey, there you are. Hello. Why is that playing through my... It's playing through my speakers, not my headphones.
If you go into breaking your headphones on,
Yeah. Where's the settings?
you put a little cog in Discord, bottom, user settings, voice,
Members list. Where's the cog?
so right,
Oh, down the bottom. User settings.
yeah, and then put voice and video, and then change your output device.
Output volume. Okay, 2 headphones. Try now.
Hello.
Oh yeah, sick. Okay. I only have voice. I don't have voice and video. Did you get the video?
Yep.
They rolled out to like 10% of users or something. You must have been the lucky 10%.
It's pretty cool to be honest. You can do like screen share and shit.
Oh yeah, we need like a good app that can do that. All I've got like for my interviews for on property and stuff are like Skype shit, or like Google Hangouts. So you reckon the overlays? What is it? Training codes, color overlays, the IASA. You reckon if I change that, it'll do it out of Wave Dash?
It might affect wave dashes, I'm not sure. But it's better just to have it on in general. Like if you got weight and you've got crouch weight, just put
Let's see.
don't make it black, make it green as well.
I know. I just put black because I just want to see if it works first. Doesn't work. Hold on.
That's good, just have it on in general. To be fair, you probably can.
Probably what? Ah, it froze. Motherfucker. Ah, it froze. Oh god. Now I'm hearing myself come back. Hard froze. Shit. Oh god. Now I'm hearing myself come back. What the fuck? Hard froze. Is that shit? God. Now I'm hearing myself come back. What the fuck? Hard froze. Is that shit? Where is this coming from? Oh my god, that was terrible. Are you there?
Were you listening to your stream or something?
I had no idea. It was going crazy. Oh, why am I now? Now I'm metal. How the hell did that happen?
You have to go back to the characters.
What is metal? Left? No.
No,
Up.
I don't know.
Dude, I got 6 viewers at the moment. What the hell? Okay, so when you land, it goes black. But when you wave dash, it doesn't.
Even if you don't end up crouching afterwards.
Yeah, I'm not crouching.
Yeah.
Does it do it after L cancels? No, it doesn't do it after L cancels.
You'll do it after like auto cancels and stuff though, I think.
It's funny, I do it like a back air and then I like disappear, depending on where I am. You can't see me. Yeah, because I want to know when I can act out of wave dash. Is there a way to do that? Do you know a way to do that?
Are you currently doing it? After the gold runs out, you should be able to access it. Having a
after gold runs out, then I should be able to act.
something like that.
So there's 1 frame, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's like 8 frames before I turn green. Let's try. Oh. Alright, let's see. So gold runs out. Alright, now I'll input jump. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's when the gold runs out. Fuck.
Having the
So to do it fast, you would have to be gold constantly, basically. And not go normal color.
Because of jump squat. You always have like bits where you go back to normal because of jump squat.
So, is it Y plus? How do you get that screen to come up that says what state you're in?
I'm not sure. You would know that better than I do.
Oh no. Oh, there it is. Y plus down. Yeah, so that's... Goes into knee bend before jump. So if I made knee bend gold as well, then you could try and always be gold, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a hassle, but it sounds like a real niche setup that I would do.
What would you do?
I would just practice my wave dashes and have
So-
overlays on that I find generally useful.
So,
Not like I'm not as specific as you are.
maybe what I need to do is just have squat green as well as whatever else I have. Where is that? Oh, you can't have 2 things as green.
Really?
No, because there's just like in the action state overlays, there's only 1 option for green. Let's do forest green.
Oh, that's right. Wait, aren't you making wait, what, you don't have anything set weight to like forest green.
No, I'm just focusing on wave dashes.
Oh, no.
Because this, I don't have a memory card. There's no memory card, so when I go back into it, it'll change. It'll go reset anyway. So I'm not doing regular green at the moment anyway. Let's just... What?
This isn't good.
Why
It's
not?
me inside.
Why? I'm not doing anything where like I need to be in weight because I'm always crouching. Like all my wave dashes I'm crouching afterwards. Alright, let's get the Goldie. Okay, then I go into squat forest green, which means I can act out of it if I jump.
Forest.
Okay. This is like a multicolored disco happening right now. Yeah, well, at least now I have a setup where, in an ideal world, when I'm fast enough, it should be all gold / jump squat.
Green.
Yeah, well, jump squat I won't be in. I won't have color, but basically I can try and not be green at all.
Wait, what's forest green then?
So forest green is squat. So as you like go through your wave dash, you go into a squat animation, and then it's after like 6 frames or something, it goes into squat wait. So it's like a different state. So squat is like as you're moving down, and then squat wait is like you've completely squatted, and now you're just hanging, doing a shit on the toilet, squatting. But yeah, thank you for your help.
No problem. I didn't really do anything.
You gave me an idea. That's enough. What are you doing today?
I'm gonna practice, but I got up and took pictures of my cat laying on me.
Pictures for Snapchat or like just for yourself, your own personal collection?
Bit of both. Bit of column A.
Yeah.
And now I'm just chilling. I saw you online, so I got up out of bed, jumped on, muted all my other streams for you.
Oh.
They're all significantly more interesting.
Yeah, well, you can go back to that. I don't mind.
Nah, I'm alright.
I'm kind of just like grinding, doing my thing,
Wait,
not really talking to anyone, listening to some shit.
Motivational things.
Mm-hmm.
So now with your title, it sounds like I'm the inspirational thing.
You are. You're
I'm
the
inspirational shit here.
You are. This is good though, being able. When you wave dash, are you a gold? Are you a overachiever with your perfect wave dash timings?
Yeah. He's in my dude.
So if you practice, you would basically get gold every time?
Probably like, yeah, I might miss like one every, I don't know, somewhere between like 6 to 10. But
Yeah, that's not too bad. That's where, I want to get good. I want to get fast, like a motherfucker.
I gotta practice my weight dash skills when I use R, to be honest. Because I'm usually a bit slower.
Fully. Wave dash actually does feel, well, especially because, I'm tilting. Fuck, my finger's getting sore though. I'm gonna have to do something else. I've been doing this for like 40 minutes. That's why I listen to stuff. Otherwise I get way too bored.
Man, I waveland around these things. And after like an hour, my index finger is like dead. Ooh,
From doing all your wavelands.
yeah.
My using the middle finger to do my wave dashes so much better than when I was just using like the left side. My hands used to get so sore just by practicing like wave dashes for like 10 minutes, and now I can go for like half an hour and my hands don't really get sore.
I don't like using my middle finger, but supposedly I've heard it's like the best one to use because it's the strongest.
Really?
Yeah.
The only reason I use it is because I L cancel with Z with my index finger. So it's kind of like, well, my index finger is already doing something, so. Alright, I'm gonna go.
You done? You got your now 2 viewers and you're done?
I'm just gonna probably keep grinding. Do you want to keep chatting? I feel like I'm interrupting your day.
Do you think I'm doing it? Buddy, this is me until like 4. when I finally muster up like the motivation to get food.
I've already like gotten up, got the kids to school, been to the beach. Now I'm practicing, and you're just waking up, and you won't do anything till 4.
Yeah.
How do you watch so many streams? I find streams so boring to watch. Nothing ever happens.
I got the Blast Zone open at the moment with Coney, EE, and whatever his name is. I forgot.
I don't know what that is.
But,
Is that a Melee thing or is that a StarCraft thing?
it's a Smash 4 thing with like people
What?
commentate like the end and stuff. So I don't really care about like Smash 4, but the good personalities.
Yeah.
I've also got speedrun friends up at the moment. Mango is doing analysis right now with STJ and M2K.
That sounds useful. Is he
Also
out?
streaming.
But don't you find... Oh, you got so much going on. I don't know. I guess I don't get much time to sit down and just watch stuff, anything for like an hour. So it's like I sit down and if nothing good's happening, I'm like, this is too boring. I'd rather watch like a YouTube video.
I can't deal with long YouTube videos, to be honest. I think it's probably the length that claims the biggest. If I see a video and it's like 5 minutes, I'm like, ugh. Like half an hour, I'm like, ugh. But then I'll sit down here and I'll watch a stream for like 4 hours, which kind of like, it was a good day.
So you're like,
It was gonna be
do you
4
like
hours,
actively watch a stream though for 4 hours? Like you'll sit there actually like...
Not really. Like at the moment I have 2 monitors open, 3 streams open, so I'm looking at yours, but I usually click off yours and look at something else for a bit. I got my friends open, but I'm not really paying attention to his at the moment. Usually they're like background noise mixed into like me talking shit on Discord, me talking shit on Facebook. And then if I'm really bored, I'll be browsing the net as well while I listen to them. So usually I'll have like 1 or 2 open. So.
Discord's been getting some action lately.
Man, people were mean to me last night. I was in fucking educational.
Yeah, I think I saw that this morning. I was like bored because I have like no apps left on my phone, except like Discord. So like I was on the toilet with nothing to do. So I like checked in educational, and then they're like, I don't know, who was it?
I don't know how it
Strauss.
started.
Strauss talking about like taking a break or something.
No, that was about like learning. I don't think he thought like. I don't know. He was
Where were they mad to you? Maybe I didn't read it.
We're in educational and something happened where I commented on like one edge guard situation and then Scared was like, oh, I think you could do this, and I was like, oh, I don't think that works because I like spacey and lag, and like, I don't even think neutral get up will beat like spacey side B. Just you know how they hit the wall and then they fall.
Yeah.
And then after I said that, he's just like, you because I'm a fucking 1 frame shine invincible, fuck you. I was like, man, chill out, I'm just trying to talk about the matchup. And he's like, fucking, why could I ever think Falcon could do anything wrong? Fuck you. Rah, rah. And then
Where?
Falcon joins in.
Where is this? No, I can't.
If you scroll up to like 7:40 p.m. is where like the conversation kind of starts.
He says practicing tech skill, not thinking about the game.
Yeah, it was around then. It was real mean.
He is just like, you're like trying to say shit and he's not even listening to you. He's just like, he's just paying the shit out of you. You're a nerdy aerial jumper, I jump nerd, poopy head. Oh well, you'll be alright. You'll be okay.
I was upset.
I hate in teams when you're edge hogging and you like roll up from the ledge, but then someone hits you, and then you're not edge hogging anymore, and then the person gets back. It makes me angry, man. Why does that happen? It's just not fair. Got a guaranteed edge guard happening with my roll up, and then fucking Marth
Just not.
just swings his big ass sword and hits me, and Fox gets back.
Oh, what?
Do you hate teams still?
I don't hate it, but I'm not huge on practicing it. I think it's because like
Because we suck as a team. Is that why?
we played well like on Tuesday actually. I found like we were actually kind of holding our space kind of well. Typically, either you'd go forward or I'd go forward, and we kind of like alternated depending on what was going on.
Yeah.
And then occasionally I'd like immediate target swap to try and help you, and then you'd occasionally do the same if you had time. You were protecting the ledge really well. I think I tried to. I probably didn't do it very well.
But you don't usually need to protect the edge for me because I have so many jumps.
Yeah.
There was a few situations where like, I don't know, I was getting pressured by myself or something, and then I would just come and like run and hide behind you, and then they would just like, then they would stop, and then it was almost like a positional reset, and then we could go again. That was good.
Yeah, no, that stuff's really good. I know Burnsy, when he used to team with Trank, if he was ever scared, he would just hold our buffer roll until he got behind Trank. So no matter where he was on the stage, he's like, nah, I'm out. Yeah.
And was this Trank playing with Samus or something? So Trank's probably just walling them out with missiles and stuff.
Yeah.
What happened to Trank, man? Where'd he go? Did he move back to Brisbane?
Controller, because I 6'2'd him and he never showed up again.
Oh, come
He
back.
lives in Brisbane now.
I love how Scared's like, Masenko is my favorite Yoshi who isn't named Trank. Like my favorite Queen Sen Yoshi who isn't named Trank.
When Masenko replied, he's like, yeah, Scared's my favorite person in this chat. That's Scared. I was like, I wish we still had the fucked up names so he wasn't actually talking about Scared.
And I was
talking about you.
I was thinking of changing my name to Scared after that. Like, I hope Masenko gets back into it.
Yeah. He's such an adult thing. I think.
Yeah, but look at me, I'm an adult too.
Yeah, but he's like full adult. You know what I mean? I feel like I was thinking about this the other day. I feel like Blasco might like essentially be their version of a child. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Like, I don't know, because they kind of picked him up and they're like, nah, we never got rid of him because, you know, he won't survive out in the wild. And
I reckon Blasco would be alright by himself. He'd be fine.
he'd be alright, but you don't want to do that to him. You know what I mean? He deserves better than alright. I can imagine him like moving out and getting pressured by 3 other roommates to having to pay more for the worst room. You know what I mean? He'd be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. No, you guys will be longer. I'll pay double. Oh man.
I love having Blasco around. That was so good that he came to Down Smash.
Yeah, how coincidental as well.
No, I texted him. Me and him have been like talking about it because he's been going to Down Smash and hasn't been coming to Tubes. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, I really like Down Smash. And like I like it better than Tubes. So like I'm like, but you're driving all the way to the Gold Coast, which is like, you know, an extra hour or something for him. And he's like, yeah, man, but it's great. And then last week he's like, oh, I'll come to Tubes because you're coming. I'm like, sick. And then he messaged me on the day. He's like, I'm not coming. Sorry, dude. I'm like, no. And then when I was coming to Down Smash, I'm like, dude, I'm coming to Down Smash. You should definitely come. And he's like, yeah, all right, I'll come. And so then he came. It was good though, man. It was good times. Blasco was telling me that he gets Masenko to like practice Melee because Masenko's heaps into Overwatch, so we'll be playing Overwatch with him, but he'll set like Melee up on the side, plug in Masenko's controller, and then he'll like set it up as teams, so like they're on a team against like CPUs, and then like when they're waiting for a game or in between games or something, like he'll just pick up his controller and start playing and be like, man, do you want to like do some teams? And then Masenko says, teams, yeah, alright, I'll do some teams. That's how he gets him to like keep practicing.
Just kicks the controller into it, scuffles off.
I've never played Overwatch. I don't even know what it is. Is it any good?
It's okay. It kind of depends on If you like an average casual,
What kind of game is it? Is it like...
it's a team-based shooting game. It's kind of like TF2 if you've ever
No,
heard of that.
I've only played like Call of Duty. Is it anything like Call of Duty?
No. Not
Halo? I played Halo.
it's closer to Halo.
What about
Game modes in it.
What about GoldenEye 64? When you can be odd job and be smaller than everyone else.
No, it's closer to Halo, but it's like the two game modes are essentially push a cart to the end, or like take spots on the map, like
Capture the flag.
hill kind of thing.
Yeah.
You take a point, then you have to like go to the next point. And you have to contest that one.
Yeah.
But
I used to love that one in Call of Duty. There was like three flags on the map.
A lot of the characters just have their own little abilities and shit. But then they have like these super ultimate abilities, which are fucking annoying. Personally, I'm not huge on the game because it primarily comes down to teamwork or how you used your ultimate more than like individual skill.
Yeah. That's why I'm so into Melee. I hate team stuff. Doubles is fine because like you're almost it's almost like it's just you like
You're generally doing like 1v1s.
yeah, you're generally like doing your own thing, and if you play better, your team does better. Like it's close enough to singles, but yeah, I could never play like League of Legends and stuff like that where like you're relying on so many other people.
Yeah, I can't stand it. There's only one team game I've enjoyed, but I never played it in a complete team setting. And that was Tribes. It was like a giant capture the flag game, except you go like jetpacks and you fly around the map at like 300 k's an hour.
What's PUBG? Why is everyone so into that?
PUBG is just a good time sink. It's essentially you all drop out from playing into a map, run around, find some gear, because you start with nothing. And it's the last man standing.
Oh, okay. So it's free
there's
for
a couple
all.
other games. Pardon?
Is it a free for all or are you like teams?
It's like teams, but you can play like solo queue where it's just you, so like no one's in teams.
Yeah.
But no, it's decent. The gameplay, like the shooting, is good enough. It's better than like most of the other games out there, and it's more tactical than the other games that try to do it.
Because
the other ones are more they're more like arcadey, like land instantly, run around with a hatchet or whatever, or a machete and try to kill people, and then giggle and laugh and reek you. Whereas PUBG is a lot more like strategy and sniping and using cover and this and that.
And so you literally drop it down with nothing, no knife or anything.
Yeah, just whatever clothes you had on before.
Well, that sounds pretty cool.
Cases, no clothes.
No clothes.
Yeah, just your underwear. Because all the loot boxes are like to get gear to like dress up in and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's like, yeah.
Because
I'm enjoying it though. I keep wearing like the dumbest fucking clothes. So like this yellow striped, red shirt with a yellow and like green jacket, a red hat, these weird like 80s goggles on. No, like imagine like those early planes. You know the little goggles they wore?
Yeah, like the aviator goggles.
Yeah, I got them on. I got a gas mask on top of it. And I got these blue Velcro shoes and no pants. It's just 10 out of 10.
So you run around with no pants on and a gas mask with like aviator goggles and a like bright red t-shirt.
With a bright yellow jacket over it. And a big red trucker cap on top of everything.
That sounds pretty dumb.
I realized afterwards though, because I kept dying first in all my games, I'm pretty sure it's just really easy to find me.
Yeah, so such a visual standout wearing like fluoro compared to someone
wearing like
grey
gear and grey and this and that.
Grey to blend into with the concrete, all that. I think I saw Kami streaming it a few days ago. But I like
Some people take it really seriously, but like it's just a pretty fun casual game.
I don't know. I logged in for like 1 minute and his computer was freezing or something, and he's just like,
Sounds like PUBG.
he's just trying to tell people that I think on his team or something that his computer's frozen, and then I was like, yeah, this is boring. I'm going out. I'm out.
Dude, the game's fucking nuts. You like boot it up and you're in the menu, so you're not even in the game, and your graphics card is like maxing out. Your fans are going nuts. Computer's just screaming at you.
Does it just demand heaps, does it? Does it use heaps of CPU?
It's just really unoptimized. So yeah, you just get into it. And you get into it, and it's just immediately before you're even in the game, your computer's just maxing out. Then you get in game, and it's slightly less.
Yeah.
The menus are more intensive in the actual game. But then it's still really buggy and shit.
You know how when we stream at like Down Smash or whatever, the CPU would be like 80% or something to like stream. My CPU for streaming is 1.4% on this computer.
My 10-year-old laptop is trying its best.
When you stream, do you use Dolphin or do you use your PVM?
I generally use my PVM, just because if I use Dolphin, unless I use like DirectX or something, I usually get like some frame drops.
Oh, okay. I just use Dolphin. Should I be like starting a netplay thing and setting the buffer?
Technically, yeah.
Because literally, I can't tell the difference between this and my monitor. Like monitor with the Wii, I mean.
Yeah, you'll get that. I think when you probably when you get like a lot faster, to be honest, because a lot of the things you like dash out of like visual cues and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. So what am I meant to set it to?
Oh, it kind of depends on your monitor. Like if you have a good monitor, maybe like if you have a good monitor, it'll be like 8. But if you have like
Well, I got an
a
iMac.
one, it'll be like 6. If you have a shit one, it'll be like 4.
So how do you work out what to do?
Kind of feel it out, or you can go full nerd and get a 240 FPS camera on your phone and use the app to count the frames.
That sounds... I guess you would only have to do that once, yeah?
Yeah.
And what? Count it from when you press shield or something?
Usually like shine, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. That is enough wave dashing for me. I might do some net play.
Gotta do some net play.
See if anyone's on.
You can change your title?
Maybe.
I wonder if I can change. No, you haven't made me an editor. Fucking hacker.
How do I do that? Are you a mod?
Yeah, I'm a mod. It'll be somewhere in your dashboard to make me an editor.
Dashboard. Editing?
Yeah.
Channels you can manage. Add an editor. Does this mean you can fuck around with my stream?
It does. How much do you trust me to not change your title to
0%. I added you as an editor.
I'm gonna refresh. People were talking about it the other day. They're like, yeah, usually you can't trust Logan to do like anything, but it's actually interesting because he runs Happy Fun Friend Times. There's been no issues. Then I also run like our group's actual Discord as well. There's also been no issues.
And you run the stream.
That too. Maybe there's a bunch of issues with that, I guess. Depending on how you look at it.
I like our stream, even though it's shit quality.
It's a trash bag stream that no one actually like watches, but it's nice to have.
Some people watch it though. Some weeks it's like there's a bunch of us in there. Like I'll tune in and Brad will be in there and sometimes Kami or like XP and like we're actually watching.
Editing. What can I edit?
Tris wants to play someone. We'll see if he wants to play me. He was saying at Tubes that he wants the He wants the puff practice for OHN.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, but then we never played.
That'll be for SA Nick anyway.
No, I was like, who plays puff? Because I don't know if does SA Nick still play? Who's that other guy who plays puff? He's a Falco main, but he changed to puff.
Billy is all I remember him as.
Yeah. I think he's still playing puff.
Well, SA Nick was playing puff at FD, remember?
That's right. And they went to game 5 or something.
Yeah.
And he did that like... What?
Crazy dare.
Yeah, that down air. That was so good.
To be honest, it's the longest fucking startup move, but like no one expected it until like the move had completely finished. Everyone's like, "Whoa!"
I know, and that's the thing. And as puff, you can like media cancel it as well. And I don't think he had run out of jumps, so I think he was just like kind of taken.
He definitely used a lot of his jumps, but it just ended up like throwing him too low, I think, because of his percent, and like recovering was just like too hard from there.
It was so hype as well because it was like Puff Samus on Dreamland, but it like came down to like last hit, last stock, and Tristan was just like struggling to recover.
Yeah, that matchup's meant to be really hard for Samus as well.
Sora's in net play saying he's going to SXC. Who's Nangs?
No idea.
Are we gonna go to SXC? Probably not.
Probably not.
Such a small
When
tournament.
is it? Like early?
I think it's early December.
Oh, no, fuck that. I don't think.
No, because it would have just been to OHN. It'd be like September, October, two and a half months later.
Be like another $500 to just throw in like a small tournament.
Yeah. It was fun though when we went. That was such a good time.
To be honest, it's a really nice place down there.
Yeah, it was good. The city's so chilled. People were pretty chill too.
Mm.
I love how everyone like went out afterwards and we just went home. just gonna go home.
I like it.
Drink some beers.
And...
That was when we bought that whole case, right? And we left like half of it.
Yeah.
The dude's house that we stayed at was like, thanks for the beers. After we left. No one's net playing.
Sad days.
I'll probably have to hop off soon anyway. Lux will want to go to sleep.
Lux, what are you doing? I have a brief comment that'll hit you up about off stream.
Okay. Now?
Yeah.
Or later?
I'll just...
Just text me
I'll do it later.
Text me and I'll read it out on stream.
Sorry, I'm not good at that. I'm not one of those like, silent readers.
I have to read it. Well, Branson at the moment, like he's just learning to read and he has to read out loud. Like he can't read in his head yet. So I'm like that too, you know, anything.
You're just hearing these fucked up books he's reading.
The fox sat on the box. The fox could not get off the box. Alright. I'm gonna stop streaming, I think.
Whoa. Alright.
And go have some lunch.